I don't know how much you know what we're doing here, but we're doing a series of historical videos and stories about some stuff. And the one in particular we want to bring up was it's the New England game in '08, and kind of how.
Why do we want to bring up that game? I mean, why do we need to ever talk about that game again?
They were coming off a bad home loss to Minnesota. Tavares Jackson threw 4 touchdown passes. Tavares Jackson. And you just got this feeling like as good of a season as they had started out having, it was all kind of falling apart.
In the history of the NFL, has there been a worse playoff team than what Arizona looks like?
We needed something to galvanize the team. And appreciated Chris, for giving us that soundbite, because we took it and we ran with it. We ran all the way to Tampa with it.
There were 2 defining moments during that season, and particularly at that point in the year. And that was first the New England game, which we got hit in the mouth, and we had to decide who we wanted to be after that.
Sometimes you need to get kicked in the butt, and I'm saying butt for a reason because we're on film, but sometimes you really have to get kicked really, really hard to realize, like, okay, we haven't made it yet.
Now back across the middle, finds Fitzgerald at the 5. He's into the end zone for the touchdown. In the backfield, he'll get it again, up the middle, fumble the ball, it's picked up by Dockett at the 10, at the 5, touchdown Cardinals! The Arizona Cardinals win the NFC West, their first division title since 1975.
I believe it was one of those things where nobody ever believed we were going to get to the playoffs. Now we're in the playoffs, but we went on a stretch there where we played 4 playoff teams there down the stretch, and all of them crushed us. Every one of them just blew us out of the water. So we've got to change the direction of what's going on.
We clinched early, and so the whole collective thought there's a little bit of a natural, we made it. But when we hit this second half of the season, we weren't just losing, but we were getting beat down.
We had to go through that adversity in order to get to the Super Bowl. So in order for us to get to the Super Bowl, we had to go through that.
Guys saw the snow on the ground, and we were beat right there. We went and did a walkthrough, and guys did not want any part of that snow.
But our walkthrough was heavily snowing. And if I recall, there were a number of guys, I think Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie was one of them. It was the first occasion in his life that he had seen snow, was that trip.
I mean, to be honest, it was a lot of people talking about how they was gonna check out in the game. And it was, to me, seriously, it was like, man, I mean, it's cold, we really don't have to beat them. And, everybody was just kind of like, man, I don't feel like playing today.
Weather is going to be the key to the game today. The team that makes the fewest mistakes will be the team that wins this game. Make no mistake about it.
We're underway here at Gillette Stadium. The running play, Hightower sprint out to the left, and Vrabel's got him in the backfield and drags him down at the 20-yard line. Gives to Jordan straight ahead. He'll walk in for the New England touchdown. Second score already for Lamont Jordan, and it's ugly early in Foxborough in more ways than one. That looked like a clear case, so the Patriots have been in this stuff before, and the Cardinals haven't. Oh, this one so far is the worst. Drops back, has time, throws across the middle to Welker for the touchdown. And the snowballs fly around Gillette Stadium.
I was in Green Bay with Favre and Mike Sherman in that group. One of the biggest things I learned from living in Green Bay and playing those bitter cold games is we are not, nobody's more cold than the other team. Both teams are equally freezing. It's who's thinking about freezing more and not thinking about executing their assignment more. And that's all it comes down to. But the worst feeling, when I look back over to those jets, the heating units that blow out, and your whole group is over there constantly, it's not good because they're thinking about how cold they are.
And to this day, I have no idea why I was so unprepared. I was wearing dress shoes on the sideline. I've been doing it 4 or 5 years. I just was totally unprepared for the climate and the weather. I have no idea why. I know by halftime I had ruined those shoes. I was freezing.
They were throwing snowballs on every touchdown, and our booth is basically out in the stands in New England. So I mean, there was snow coming into the booth. I think I had, I think my socks were soaking wet from the snow.
During that game, some of their audible calls was actually my wife's name. Yeah. So these guys are so smart. They don't know my wife, but they'll read up so much on who you are, where you're from, and all this stuff. They'll get your mind off the game for a split second. Like, how do you know my and the ball is snapped? So it's a game within a game within a game.
I'd never had frostbite before. I just knew my hand was really red. Come to realize that, I couldn't feel it. Even when we got home, whatever time it was the next morning, like 4 o'clock the next morning, I couldn't feel anything. And then the whole next week, I couldn't feel anything in that finger. Still can't.
Matt Leinart came in relief and down the left sideline to Larry for 70-something yard touchdown, thankfully, because that's the only thing that kept it from being a shutout.
It's bad enough that we got our tails kicked 47-7, but then we had to go through that fiasco of just trying to get back home. It just seemed like it was just a never-ending nightmare.
I've actually passed out and went to sleep. I remember waking up and we were on the ground. I thought we were in Arizona, but we're actually in Minnesota.
I was in like one of the first rows behind the players, and I'll never forget, we land in Minnesota. They are gonna restock us with some stuff in the back of the plane, which we're all sitting right there at the back of the plane. And I'll never forget, Lyle Sendline is sleeping. And they open the back, and it's dark outside, and it's Minnesota. I mean, it's below zero. And they open the back, and this whoosh of like freezing air comes in. And he wakes up, and he says, "What the is going on around here?"
It was cold, even for Phoenix, and it was wet, and they were in full pads, and players hate being in full pads at any time during the season, but especially late in the season, especially on Christmas Eve, especially in the rain, especially when it's cold.
It was, they had their first practice of the week on Christmas Eve on a Wednesday, and then Christmas was Thursday. They were hard practices. He made them go full pads on Wednesday, which was unheard of that late in the season. It was, freezing cold. There's some weather, and Wisenhunt was basically telling guys, if you don't play hard in practice this week and you don't play hard in this finale, I don't care who you are, I'm not playing you in the playoffs.
We practiced in the rain 2 straight days. I mean, it was coming down like cats and dogs. I think guys really understood the importance of putting together a good week of work. And it was all started by Kurt. I mean, those 2 rain practices, I don't think a ball touched the ground.
As a video guy, you're expected to get in a scissor lift and film practice. I remember being a rather long practice and a miserable practice, especially for the players, and then as a video guy, being that high up with the wind and the rain, and you're swaying all over, and you're trying to stay focused on the play and pay attention, but also try to be safe and not fall off the lift.
He wanted to send a message to us. He was not happy, and at that point, you couldn't really blame him, because it wasn't that we lost to New England. We got pushed around. I mean, we looked like a team that had no idea what we were doing. I mean, Wiz was definitely on one to try to get us motivated, practicing in thunderstorms, rainstorms. Like, you couldn't even see the field because there was so much water, standing water. And he was bound and determined to get it out of us that week.
What we were doing wasn't working, so we had to come outside that box. And at that time, you didn't put pads on very much at the end of the season, and it's really the smart thing to do. But we let them all know and said, look, we are going to change. And they wanted to. They weren't any different. When you get in a position, players, coaches, it's not like we're cracking a whip and these guys. I mean, they're the competitors. They're the ones across the big white line. They wanted it.
And I remember having some meetings with the different leaders of the different groups and going, hold on a sec here, guys. I know we're in the playoffs, but that's not why I'm here. I'm not here just to get into the playoffs. We've got to change the direction of what's going on.
Now let's go through the 3 games. The early game at 1 o'clock, New England is at Buffalo. A must-win situation for New England relative to the playoffs. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, New England looked great considering they were playing the University of Arizona out there. I mean that as no disrespect to the University of Arizona.
Of course you don't.
In the history of the NFL, has there been a worse playoff team than what Arizona looks like coming in?
This was right before 2010 when the Seahawks won the division with a losing record. This was before 2014 when the Panthers won their division with a losing record.
Chris, to me, is one of the best guys to ever do this. So, and I know he watches a lot of tape, and I'm sure he watched a lot of those games that the Cardinals lost and lost big on the road and said, how's this team going to win in the playoffs? And I also remember emceeing an event on the Great Lawn with Michael and with Wolf, and this was right before the game. And the Cardinal fans were ticked off. They were so mad at Chris Collinsworth. It was kind of cool to see their belief. And I think we all wanted to feel the way they did and have that belief that, yeah, he's wrong.
You don't want them to have the satisfaction of saying this is the worst team ever to make it to the playoffs, and then you get put out the first round and they're like, we told you it's the worst team. So it was a blessing, and it was a testament to all the guys on the team to actually push past that and to the Super Bowl and make a run to be made.
I don't remember disagreeing with them too much. I mean, that's where we were as a group. I mean, you can't argue with the Thanksgiving Day in Philadelphia. I mean, and then New England, and I think Minnesota I mean, it wasn't good ball at the end. And again, I think that's part of the reason we went so far in the playoffs, because that's what our opponents were looking at on tape.
The Cardinals are finished. Please enlighten us a little bit.
Well, you know, I'm surprised, Chris, that you weren't leading the charge with that, because, you know, we still were the worst playoff team ever.
Sometimes you just need a wake-up call.
Looking left, throws over the middle. It's caught by Preston at the 5. He breaks a tackle. He's in. Touchdown, Cardinals. You can't stop that guy. Touchdown, Cardinals.
That is absolutely huge.
Left side, Fitzgerald. He got it. The Cardinals have shocked the world.
Time is now. It's our time to shine.
Here's the run-up, and Super Bowl 43 is underway with the flashbulbs a-popping.
I believe we needed that.
We don't make it without New England. We don't make it without Philly. We don't make it without Minnesota. There are a lot of lessons to have been learned throughout the course of that run, and every loss, every win kind of molded us and shaped us.
There were 2 defining moments. I think the second moment was because we weren't historically that season a good road team, when we went to Carolina and beat Carolina on the road, when most people at that point were not giving us the benefit of the doubt. But we went in there and we did it convincingly.
Some guys played huge, long careers and never even smelled the playoffs. You know, so to make it to the Super Bowl, it was just a blessing.
You're 60 minutes away from the Super Bowl title. So just worry about the 60 minutes in front of you, not the 16 games behind you.
You could definitely make that argument. If that game doesn't happen, it changes their course.
I guess the rest is history from that.